GM, everybody. GM. Welcome to the Daily Digital Download for Thursday, May 7th. This is my first Daily Digital week. I've been on bereavement leave. A dear friend passed away, and I was unable to work, basically. It was really rough paths. So, as is such, it was really hard for me to hit record today, but here we are. Thank you to everybody who is watching this now or in the future. And it says we're live, but I am just not seeing that. Anyways, whatever. We'll copy the link here. We'll share it on the old TL. If for any reason at all there are issues, yeah, I don't get it. Anyways, I don't know, man. We're just gonna trudge through. So, this is a catch-up week. Unfortunately, no one on Twitter is watching this right now. So let's just grind, baby. Let's just do what we do and move on through. So this week, we're going to be talking, or well, today, for catching up this week, we're going to be talking about the Kelp DAO fallout. And so we started the week on Monday with some shiesty legal activity. Lawyers for the plaintiffs that served Arbitrum DAO through a forum post with a restraining notice barring the DAO from moving 30,766 ETH that the Arbitrum Security Council froze on April 20th. The plaintiffs are victims of terrorism, were not themselves affected by the Kelp DAO hack, but they instead hold older judgments of DPRK-related hacks, thefts, and negative activities that have gone that they represent, the victims of terrorism. This is money that belongs to people who had it stolen from them in Kelp DAO, in Aave, and in other realms. And so it's kind of a dirty tactic that the lawyers are taking, which together allow judgment creditors of a state sponsor of terrorism to attach property held by the regime or its agencies and instrumentalities. So these are the kind of legal loopholes, I guess you could say, that the lawyers are going after to get funding from the Kelp DAO incident for their clients. Oh, we're live again. Would you look at that? Here, let me copy this link and share it in the old TL. Whatever. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. This is for you. So ZachXBT said that this is a predatory U.S. law firm with a strategy that is pure evil. Whenever there's a new Lazarus Group victim after an exploit and crypto assets get frozen, these clowns come in and say they have a claim for alleged DPRK victims from 26 years ago that has zero relation to crypto or exploits and hacks. And yeah, this is not your money. This doesn't belong to you. You have nothing to do with it. But these are people who've been hurting for decades now at this point, and they just want some form of compensation. And so they hire their lawyers to go after that in any means possible. Unfortunately for us in the crypto space who just are reeling from a negative attack, that pisses us off because this funding is not yours. This funding has nothing to do with the terrorism attacks that happened decades ago. This is money that belonged to people all around the world, and it's theirs, and they should gain access to it, not other folks who are reeling in pain. So that was brought about on Monday. The next day, on Tuesday, well, yeah, I guess carrying on that day, Aave LLC filed an emergency motion in federal court seeking to lift an order that froze that $73 million. And they said that those claims were based on unproven speculation that the Kelp DAO exploit on April 18th was carried by a North Korean hacking outfit, Lazarus Group. So their argument was, we think this was Lazarus Group, but there's no proof. So your court filing to gain access to the $300 million in funds or more that were put up by DeFi United holds no weight because we haven't proved yet that this was North Korea. And so that came about as an anti-measurement in court to stop the predatory lawyers from trying to get funding for their clients to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. Then later this week, on May 5th, 2 days ago, Kelp DAO said that they're leaving Layer 0 because Layer 0 is insecure. The one-of-one DVN signature setup didn't work for them. Obviously, they were hacked. And they are moving to Chainlink. With the move, Kelp DAO is the first major protocol to move to Layer 0 since the exploit, a Chainlink representative told the block. Kelp DAO's migration to Chainlink CCIP directly addresses the architectural vulnerability that was at the center of the exploit, Kelp DAO writes. In addition to Kelp DAO using CCIP, RSETH will also adopt the CCT, the cross-chain token standard, as the announcement read. Chainlink's infrastructure has now supported over $30 trillion in cross-chain transaction value to date, and this is just a negative byproduct of Layer 0, unable to provide secure cross-chain infrastructure services, and now Kelp DAO is leaving. As I pointed out last week, and I'm sure I've missed nuance because I've been AFK for the better half of this week, the fingers were being pointed at everybody else when the hack first happened in the second half of April. And I think largely the industry assumption is that Layer 0 was most culpable, was most at fault. That being said, in this instance, it took 3 to tango, but it takes 2 to tango. And I don't think we can effectively point blame at anyone else. But when something bad happens, you have to act, you have to move. And that's what Kelp DAO is doing by changing their infrastructure services provider. I would hope in the future nobody uses RSETH. Let's stop using wrapped restaked tokens. It just adds to the degeneracy and potential for cascading negativity like we have seen with the Kelp DAO hack. And then lastly, Aave has liquidated the Kelp DAO's attackers' remaining RSETH tokens. So Aave liquidating these RSETH positions are part of the recovery plan. The liquid collateral will be moved into the Recovery Guardian, which is a designated multi-sig wallet managed by the DeFi United initiative. This process represents one of the final steps in a community-wide effort to undo damage caused by a $292 million exploit. These were originally part of a governance process that Aave has previously acknowledged. And as such, the Aave team went on to say, quote, "All such adjustments will be fully reverted upon completion of the liquidation process with no persistent configuration changes to the Aave protocol expected as a result of the governance protocol. Once the collateral is secured, the RSETH price oracle will be restored, meaning that the bad debt should be cleaned up. People should be able to exit their positions, and we can start moving on and healing from this negative moment in time." And I'm sure there will be more news coming up in the future, but that is what has happened this week in terms of the Kelp DAO attack. The other piece of news that kind of arose as a key theme of Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, and today, Thursday, was what's going on with the Clarity Act. And we started off the week basically with banks saying that they still don't like the Clarity Act and they're confused and concerned about the future. Banking trading groups have said that the wording falls short of what they would want, and that the latest language in the proposed Clarity Act blocks covered parties from paying interest-bearing bank deposit, end quote. The banking trade group said on Monday, quote, "Senators Tillis and Alsbrooks are seeking to achieve the correct policy goal, prohibiting the payment of yield and interest on stablecoins. However, the proposed language falls short of the goal. It is imperative that Congress gets this right," end quote. So the Senate Banking Committee is trying to schedule a hearing in July. but it was canceled when Coinbase pulled its support earlier this year because of the stablecoin reward language. But Coinbase recently signed off on the latest version a couple of weeks ago. So now this larger bill is something that the banks and banking lobbyists don't like. Crypto entities surely don't like it because now you can't get interest on Coinbase unless you're spending enough in trades, which is where it's looking like this reward wording is going to land us. You know, you don't get interest on your USDC token that you're holding on Coinbase, but you can get rewards if you've traded $10,000 worth this month or this year. That's kind of what it's going to be looking like if I'm reading between the lines for the proposed bills. But again, we want this Clarity Act. We want law. We want the oversight of crypto assets to be handled by the SEC and the CFTC, and we want a legally binding document to tell these entities what they do and don't monitor, and who's going to regulate us if we're a blockchain or a crypto company building in the US, or if you are a token holder. Are you holding a security? Are you holding a commodity? Why do we still not have a definition for these things? 18 years after Bitcoin came to existence. So that's the latest on the banks. They still don't like the wording. Good God. And then the following day, on May 5th, TD Cowen, a banking entity, a bank part, one of the voices within the bank trade group, basically said that the proposed compromise, which would still allow crypto platforms to offer rewards tied to use of stablecoins in transactions, falls short. So the banks still don't like the wording, even though Coinbase, Kraken, third parties aren't going to inherently give away interest and yield on stablecoins. They still don't like the wording, even if it's Jarrett Seiberg at TD Cowen's Washington Research Group said, quote, "We do not see a middle ground that would satisfy the banks and the major crypto platforms, as we believe some crypto platforms want the ability to keep paying yield to encourage retail investors to keep their liquidity in their crypto wallets, and that is a non-starter for banks," end quote. He also added that banks have an edge as the proposed rules from the OCC. We really only have 3 months to get the Clarity Act put through, and there's still a lot of time and a lot of ground that needs to be covered between now and then. We need to get the bill reconciled at Senate Banking Committee, then through Senate Ag Committee, then it needs to go through Senate, then it needs to be approved by House, and then it also needs to be signed by Trump. And we still have to have time for people to debate the merits of the bill that they do and they don't like. So time is running short for Senate to vote by late July. The bill needs to emerge from the Senate Banking Committee by late June, given that there's also a Memorial Day holiday that only leaves a few weeks for action. So there's mixed, and largely, I think this is probably a realistic perspective that insiders are increasingly pessimistic that there's a 1 in 3, and the percentage being put on the bill passing this year is about 33%, 1 in 3 chance, which would mean the bill could be delayed to 2027, which means that rules might not take effect until 2029 if hurdles aren't resolved this year. So we're looking at a super narrow time frame to get the bill passed, and the crypto conference. And he said that they're setting a target date of July 4 to pass broad crypto legislation into law as the window to act continues to dwindle. So he believed that Senate could advance the legislation in June, giving enough time for the House to also pass its version. That being said, alongside the issues of interest on stablecoin, the other kind of like sticking point that the Democrats are really focusing on right now is President Trump and his family's crypto connections, which Bloomberg has estimated have brought in about $1.4 billion. Jesus Christ, guys. The industry does not want this grifting president to be able to make a bunch of money off of us, off of our backs. And it's really frustrating that a sitting president has been able to launch a shitty DeFi platform that does shitty things with its token, with shit. He obviously used the popularity and momentum of his name in becoming the president in early 2025 to make thoughts, opinions, and legislation into the U.S. That being said, the Democrats want an ethics provision, and the top advisor for the Council of Advisors for Digital Assets said that they're aiming for July 4. So hopefully we can get something moving in that right direction. On to our last pieces of news for the day. This isn't new, but I just wanted to cover it for my personal agentic purposes. Coinbase cut around 700 people, or 14% of its staff, on May 4th, on Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And they're blaming a shift in AI native operations and market downturns. While Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, confirmed the layoff, saying that the company's business remains volatile from quarter to quarter, he also noted that AI has changed how the team works. The company had about 4,900 people at the end of 2025, so around 680 to 700 employees were laid off this week. Brian Armstrong said, quote, "We're currently in a down market and need to adjust our cost structure now that we emerge from this period leaner, faster, and more efficient for our next phase of growth," end quote. I think what we're seeing this year is a lot of blockchain and crypto companies seeing their treasury dwindle because the price of the assets of tokens, of which they probably hold a lot, have gone down bad. I mean, Bitcoin is almost down 50%, maybe 40% from its all-time highs. And that's good compared to the rest of what's happening to other tokens in the industry. So if your treasury is comprised of your ecosystem token that's down 80% or more, your runway is also extremely hurt. And so instead of saying we overhired during the the bull market, we're bloated, we made a bunch of wrong moves during the previous couple of years, instead of saying that, and also noting that there's lesser runway to make these layoffs because we're enabled to do more with less, it's easier to say that and keep your job rather than I fucked up, we overhired, we have to lay people off. Oh, and by the way, the market out of our control is decreasing our runway efficiency. So I think we're seeing a lot of AI watching, and Coinbase is just the next big crypto name to lay people off. So sorry to all of my friends at Coinbase who got laid off. I have no doubt you guys will end up somewhere. You're joining a pretty competitive pool because a lot of folks from the blockchain and crypto space have been laid off this year, and it's rough out there. So I really feel for everybody who's been a part of the layoffs in the first 2 quarters of 2026. I hope you end up in Bitcoin and blockchain, Bitcoin, and crypto still. And I hope we don't lose you to another emerging technology sector. If there's any way I can help anybody, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to help you in any way possible. And then lastly, Project 11, a quantum resistant entity. They've raised funds to provide quantum security to the Bitcoin ecosystem, is stating that it believes Q-Day could come as early as 2030. Q-Day is, of course, Quantum Day, which is the day that a quantum computer can hack the low-hanging fruit of Bitcoin wallets that are subject to Schnorr attacks, which are a type of quantum algorithm that can go after P2PK wallet addresses, which are essentially among the first types of address to be able to derive the private key to steal those funds and those assets. So Q-Day could come as early as 2030, according to Project 11, and they predict that quantum advancements will happen in sudden leaps rather than in a slow and linear progression. Currently, around 6.9 million Bitcoins, now worth more than $560 billion, could be exposed to quantum risk under certain conditions, like I just mentioned. So The thing with Q-Day is to not be scared into shoving your head into the sand or buying a bunker to go live in underground. The thing is to continue paying attention to it. Learn about the latest advancements when you can. If you are a Bitcoin token holder, do everything you can to slow the threat. Regular Web 2 protocols are being attacked. New AI LLMs and models are being able to find bugs in super old code that was considered to be fortified. And we're just entering a season where you invest their time and energy into going after you. So with all that said, folks, sorry if I'm a bit drained today. Sorry if I wasn't lively.